Okay, what I'm going to be showing you today is a little tutorial on how to shade with a pen using the technique called hatching. What we're going to be doing, we're going to be using just a regular ballpoint pen. I've provided these images on Google Classroom so you can print this one out to practice if you need. And what we are going to be doing is creating lines that are going in the same direction. They don't intentionally crisscross, but in some places they will probably overlap and cross over to create your darker areas. So what you should be seeing by me doing this is that I am drawing lines that curve to show the shape and the dimension and the form of the pumpkin. So my lines don't just start straight up from the bottom. They really like to curve and kind of hug and mimic the shape of whatever area I'm actually shading. So that means that if we were shading an animal with short hair, our lines should be shorter and should go in the direction of the way that the hair is actually going on the animal. But we're doing a pumpkin and we're wanting our lines to show that it has kind of one large curve in each section, so that our lines should be longer, and in between each of the sections I'm going to make my lines a little bit darker. Okay, so I'm going to start moving a little bit faster here. And then at the bottom I'm going to layer my lines with some short lines so that it creates a darker shadow. In order to make something look very realistic, you want to use a full range of value. Your value ranges from 1 to 10. This is a value scale right here. So in order to have a lot of dimension, a lot of contrast, the potential of it being very realistic, you should have all the way from 1s to 5s to 10s in your drawing. So, and you can see on this one I curved these lines a little bit to the left, I curved these lines a little bit to the right, and then the ones in the middle kind of go straight up. Some of my lines are going to be longer, some of them are going to be shorter, and that's going to help it look more blended and realistic. I am using just real wispy lines. It means that when I put my pen down, that's where I want my darkest area to be, because typically when you put your pen down, it just happens, you press down a little bit harder, and then as I move up, I just pull my pen up to create a more wispy line. So these kind of curve inward, and they're all going to end up kind of looking like they are converging into this top area. And I want my area behind my stem to be real dark, because if something does not have a dark shadow behind it or a lot of contrast, then it's likely to all blend in. So I might try and show you that real quick. A lot of times if you can't tell if you have enough contrast in something, the best thing to do is to hold your picture away from you and up in the air, and you can typically tell if something blends in too much and you can't see your detail. Then like if you couldn't see all your different sections or you couldn't see your stem, it means you need to go in and put in more contrast so that it shows up better. And contrast meaning you need to make your darker areas even darker, which we know are right here close to the stem and at the bottom where it is sitting. So darkening these edges, and then of course the little shadows in between each one are going to be darker so that you can really see your, and it's not just a dark line, I'm kind of fading these out with extra lines so that it doesn't just look like a dark Sharpied outline. And I'm just using a ballpoint pen. I encourage you just to use a ballpoint pen. Sharpies can tend to bleed and get messy. Now if you have like a nice art pen, micro pen, then that is great to use too. Alright, last section and then the stem. And as you learn your shading techniques in class, I expect to see you implement them, which means apply them into your projects as we move throughout the year. This technique might not be your favorite. We're going to learn other ones, and you'll find what works best for your style. And as you can tell, by leaving an area in the middle white, it creates a highlight, and it makes it look like the light is shining right there. It helps it to make it look more dimensional, more 3D. So now to do the stem, you can tell that the lines go up and over and curve and hug the shape. So I think I've mentioned this earlier. This type of shading is also called directional shading because it follows the direction of the shape that you are shading in. So it kind of mimics the outside edges, so they're parallel. The lines are kind of parallel to the curve that's created with the section, or the main lines that are closest to them. Okay, so when I look at this, it looks pretty good, but I see that like all this right here is the same value, these sections right here and the stem, and it's probably on the value scale, it's probably like a 5-ish, but in order to make my stem more visible, I go in behind it, and if I darken these areas to really make and create more contrast, it's going to make that stem show up more. It's going to make it more visible from further away. Okay, so I think that I am done. And practice, look up other tutorials. It's always great to look up other artists and how they create value using a pen. Just don't always get just your information from me. You can always improve more by watching other artists too. Okay.